Everyone knows Roomba, the little robot that drives around your floor, bumps into furniture, and somehow convinces your cat it's a mortal enemy. But here's what you probably didn't know. Your Roomba has been mapping your home for years. Every room, every hallway, where you sleep, where your kids sleep. And right now, that map is in Chinese hands. iRobot went bankrupt, a Chinese company bought it, and with it, the floor plans of 50 million American homes. Here's how that happened. iRobot didn't start as a vacuum cleaner company. It started as a robotics lab, with military contracts and a mission to build machines that could go where humans couldn't. 3 MIT graduates founded it in 1990. Rodney Brooks, one of the most respected artificial intelligence researchers in the world. Colin Angle, his student, who would go on to run the company for over 30 years. And Helen Greiner, who decided at age 11, after watching R2-D2 in Star Wars, that she would build a real robot one day. They started in a basement in Somerville, Massachusetts, financed on bank loans and credit cards, working 18-hour days. Their first products had nothing to do with your living room floor. They were building robots for DARPA, for NASA, for the US military, machines that could navigate landmines, explore other planets, go into places no human should go. The PackBot was their breakthrough. A military robot deployed at Ground Zero after September 11th to search the rubble, then sent to Iraq and Afghanistan to disarm roadside bombs. These were not toy makers. These were serious scientists solving serious problems. But Colin Angle had a parallel obsession. He believed robots shouldn't just serve governments and militaries. They should be in every home, affordable, practical, useful to ordinary people. So in September 2002, alongside all the military contracts, iRobot launched something completely different. A small round autonomous vacuum cleaner priced at $199. They called it the Roomba. It looked like a toy, it moved like a drunk frisbee, and it sold 1 million units in its first 2 years. The scientists who had built bomb disposal robots for the US Army had accidentally stumbled onto something even bigger, a product that every household in America might actually want. And they were just getting started. The Roomba was an immediate cultural phenomenon, not because it was perfect. Early models got stuck on carpet edges, ate charging cables, and occasionally fell downstairs, but because the idea was perfect. A robot that cleaned your house while you did something else. That concept hit something deep in the American consumer brain. People put their cats on them. The internet went insane. Viral videos of pets riding Roombas existed before viral videos were even a thing. By 2004, iRobot had sold 1 million units. By 2006, 5 million. The price dropped, the technology improved, and the Roomba became a household word in the most literal sense. Like Hoover or Band-Aid, people started calling every robot vacuum a Roomba, regardless of who made it. That's the kind of brand dominance you can't buy. In 2005, iRobot went public on the NASDAQ, raising $103 million. Wall Street loved the story. MIT scientists, military contracts, consumer robotics, a product that practically sold itself. By 2015, iRobot controlled between 60 and 88% of the global robot vacuum market. Not a majority. A monopoly in everything but name. Then, the technology got genuinely interesting. The newer Roomba models didn't just vacuum randomly, they mapped your home. Using sensors and cameras, they built precise floor plans of every room, stored them in the cloud, and used them to clean more efficiently over time. It was brilliant engineering. Your Roomba learned your home. It knew which rooms got dirtiest fastest. It knew where the furniture was. It knew the layout of every space you lived in. In 2016, iRobot made a decisive bet on this future. They sold their entire military robotics division, the PackBots, the bomb disposal machines, the government contracts, for $45 million. Everything that had started the company, gone. From this point forward, iRobot was purely a consumer company, purely focused on the home. The pandemic sent them into the stratosphere. Stuck at home, suddenly aware of every speck of dust on their floors, consumers bought robot vacuums in record numbers. Revenue hit $1.43 billion in 2021. The market cap touched $3.56 billion. Colin Angle was on magazine covers. iRobot was the future of the home. 50 million Roombas sold worldwide. 50 million homes mapped, measured, and remembered by a device the size of a dinner plate. Nobody was thinking about what that meant yet. The problem came from the same place most American tech problems come from these days: China, Roborock, Ecovacs, Xiaomi. 3 Chinese manufacturers who looked at the Roomba understood exactly how it worked and started producing comparable robot vacuums for half the price, in some cases less. A Roborock that mapped your home just as accurately as a Roomba, cleaned just as well, and cost $200 less. For a consumer choosing between 2 products on Amazon, the math wasn't complicated. iRobot had built their moat on 2 things: patents and brand recognition. The patents protected their core technology from being legally copied. The brand made people trust the product. But in 2023, iRobot's foundational patents expired. The technology that had taken Helen Greiner and Colin Angle years to develop was now fair game. Every Chinese manufacturer with a factory and an algorithm could build a Roomba, legally, overnight. The brand still meant something. But brand loyalty only stretches so far when the price gap is $200. Meanwhile, the post-pandemic hangover hit hard. The home improvement boom that had sent iRobot's revenue to record highs in 2021 collapsed just as fast as it had appeared. People had already bought their Roombas. They didn't need another one. New customer acquisition became expensive and slow. Revenue dropped from $1.43 billion in 2021 to $891 million in 2022, then kept dropping. Inside the company, the pressure was mounting. iRobot was spending heavily on research and development, trying to stay ahead of the Chinese competition. New features, better mapping, smarter navigation. But every innovation they shipped, Roborock and Ecovacs copied within months at a lower price point. It was an arms race iRobot couldn't win. They had the engineers, the Chinese manufacturers had the factories, the scale, and the cost structure. Then, there was the data problem nobody wanted to talk about publicly. In 2020, MIT Technology Review broke a story that should have stopped people in their tracks. iRobot had shared images collected by development versions of their Roomba with a data labeling company. Images that included people inside their homes, including a young girl sitting on a toilet. The photos had leaked onto Facebook. iRobot insisted these were research devices with special cameras, not consumer products. But the story planted a seed of unease that never fully went away. Your Roomba was mapping your home, storing that data in the cloud. And the security of that data depended entirely on the trustworthiness of one American company with declining revenue and mounting debt. In August 2022, Amazon came with a solution, or what looked like one. They offered $1.7 billion to acquire iRobot entirely. For a company bleeding market share and watching its stock price fall, $1.7 billion felt like a lifeline. Colin Angle accepted. The deal was announced, and then everyone had to wait for regulators to approve it. They waited 17 months. During those 17 months, iRobot essentially stopped operating like an independent company. Why invest in new products when you're about to be absorbed by Amazon? Why cut costs aggressively when the acquisition money is coming? The company went into a kind of suspended animation, too acquired to act independently, not yet acquired enough to have Amazon's resources. It was the most dangerous place a struggling company can be, standing still while the competition kept moving, and then the regulators made their decision. January 2024. The European Commission blocked the Amazon acquisition. Their reasoning was straightforward. Amazon already dominated e-commerce. Amazon already had Alexa in millions of homes. Amazon already sold smart home devices. Adding Roomba's floor plan data to that ecosystem would give Amazon an unprecedented window into how people actually lived inside their houses. What rooms they spent time in, where they slept, how big their homes were. Regulators decided that was too much power concentrated in one place. They killed the deal. Amazon paid iRobot a $94 million termination fee and walked away in about 48 hours. Clean exit, no mess. No consequences for Amazon whatsoever. For iRobot, it was a catastrophe. Colin Angle, the man who had co-founded the company 34 years earlier, resigned the same week. Not gradually. Not on his own timeline. The same week. iRobot immediately announced it was laying off 31% of its entire workforce. 350 people gone in one announcement. The $94 million termination fee, which sounds like a cushion, was gone within months, covering operating losses. The suspended animation of the previous 17 months had cost them dearly. Competitors hadn't paused. Roborock and Ecovacs had spent those 17 months improving their products, expanding their distribution, and cutting their prices further. iRobot emerged from the failed acquisition weaker, smaller, and further behind than when it started. New CEO Gary Cohen came in with a restructuring plan. Cut costs. Focus on premium products, rebuild the brand around quality rather than competing on price. It was a sensible strategy. It was also too late. By mid-2025, revenue had fallen another 25% year over year. The company had accumulated roughly $190 million in debt. Every potential acquirer that came to look at the books walked away. The irony was becoming impossible to ignore. European regulators had blocked Amazon from buying iRobot, specifically to protect consumers' home data from falling into the hands of a powerful American corporation. What they had actually done was ensure that iRobot would have no resources to survive independently. And a weakened, bankrupt iRobot would sell to whoever offered the most money, with no regulatory review, with no conditions, with nothing. December 14, 2025. iRobot filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The buyer that emerged was Shenzhen Pisea Robotics, a Chinese company. Specifically, iRobot's own contract manufacturer. The company that had been physically building Roombas for years now owned the entire operation, the patents, the software, the brand, the cloud infrastructure storing the floor plans, and with it, the home maps of 50 million households. The US Congress reacted immediately. Lawmakers sent letters demanding answers. How had regulators who blocked Amazon on privacy grounds created a situation where a Chinese manufacturer now owned the most intimate data set in American consumer technology? The Pentagon, it emerged, had quietly warned military personnel years earlier not to use consumer robot vacuums in sensitive locations. That warning had never been made public. Nobody had thought it was necessary, because nobody had imagined iRobot would end up in Chinese hands. The European regulators who killed the Amazon deal had been trying to protect the privacy of European consumers. They had succeeded. Amazon didn't get the data. Instead, the data went to a company headquartered in Shenzhen with no GDPR obligations, no American privacy laws to comply with, and no Senate hearing to attend. The cure had been worse than the disease. Not slightly worse, catastrophically worse. Colin Angle, the MIT graduate who had spent 34 years building the company, watched it sold in a bankruptcy court for less than Amazon had offered 4 years earlier. Helen Greiner, the girl who had watched R2-D2 and dreamed of building real robots, saw her life's work transferred to the manufacturer that had been assembling it in a factory in Shenzhen. The little robot that had charmed the world, driven cats insane, and mapped the inside of 50 million homes was still running, still bumping into furniture, still doing its job. It just had new owners now, and they were very far away. The regulators who tried to protect your data didn't save it. They just chose who got it. If you want to know which company is next, subscribe.